What is the impact of contaminants on plants? With a plethora of chemicals being used in our homes and in our cars today, naturally some of these chemicals must be seeping into our groundwater. And I wanted to study how plants are adversely affected by receiving water that contains these chemical pollutants. I decided to study the effects of a variety of chemicals on plants over a 6-week period. I planted lima bean seeds in 6 plant containers. 2 of the plants would simply receive water. However, 2 of the plants would receive water as well as a teaspoon of an organic chemical, which means containing carbon, a substance found naturally in our Earth's atmosphere, and 2 of the plants would receive inorganic chemicals in their water. Of the 2 plants containing organic chemicals, one will receive a teaspoon of motor oil in its water twice a week, and one will receive a teaspoon of soap in its water twice a week. Of the plants given inorganic chemicals, one would receive 3 teaspoons of soda in its water twice a week. Since soda already contains water, it would have a higher dose. And one would receive a teaspoon of Clorox in its water twice a week. I had hypothesized that both types of chemicals would be harmful to the plants, but that the organic chemical compounds found in substances such as motor oils and soaps would not harm plant growth and lifespan as quickly as inorganic chemical compounds such as phosphoric acids and nitrates found in sodas and bleaching agents would. Well, after only 7 days, I noticed that the plant-given soda and the plant-given Clorox, the 2 inorganic chemicals, were struggling quite a bit and were not growing much at all. However, I noticed the plant-given motor oil was also struggling and was not growing nearly as well as the 2 plants given straight water. The plant-given soap was growing just fine and sprouting leaves and bean pods. However, since the plant-given motor oil was not going well at all, perhaps my hypothesis was a bit off. We would just have to wait and see. After only 2 weeks, the Clorox-polluted plant was drooping and wilting. Growth of the soda-fed plant had been stunted and it was acquiring brown spots. However, it was still alive. Also after 2 weeks, the plants with soap and motor oil, the organic chemicals, were slightly varied in their reactions. Both plants were continuing to grow, but the soap-watered plant had grown more than the one with motor oil, which also had leaves wilting. Both plants were hanging in there at this point. By 4 weeks, the plant watered with Clorox had died. The soda-watered plant was stagnant. Its growth and production of beans had stopped. The controlled plants, those simply watered, were continuing to grow and produce multiple beans. The plants watered with soap and motor oil were wilting further. Each had 3 beans on them, but they were beginning to brown. At 6 weeks, the watered plants were still growing. One had 4 beans and another had 2. Of course, the Clorox watered plant, still dead. The soda watered plant was the same size, but the beans were drooping and threatening to drop. By now, the beans on the plant watered with motor oil had deteriorated, as had the beans on the soap watered plant. However, the leaves on this one were still green and were not wilted. My conclusion is that both types of chemicals, those with organic and those with inorganic compounds, do have harmful effects on plants, causing a stunting of growth, decrease of vegetation, and death. Organic chemicals, those composed mainly of carbon, and inorganic chemicals, those primarily containing ingredients not naturally found in our atmosphere, are chemicals such as chlorides, nitrates, phosphoric acids, and heavy metals. As I hypothesized, I did find that the inorganic chemicals stunted the growth and vegetation of the lima bean plants more quickly than the organic chemicals did. The plant watered with Clorox died after 4 weeks, and the plant with soda stopped growth and bean production in this time frame. And while the 2 plants with organic chemicals grew differently in the first week, their growth and vegetation did proceed to steadily decrease over the preceding weeks. During this experiment, I pondered the correlation one could reasonably make between the danger of chemical contamination to humans and that to plants. If ingestion of toxins such as chlorides and heavy metals can cause serious conditions, including cancer, typhoid, and deformity, even death, for humans, it must indeed be harmful to other living organisms. Of the 70,000 organic chemicals currently being used in the U.S., the EPA has designated 654 of them, and even more inorganic chemicals, to be groundwater pollutants that are hazardous to our country's ecosystems. Inorganic chemicals used frequently in and around homes include antiseptics, drain uncloggers, sink and toilet cleaners, oven cleaners, and rust prevention primers. Organic chemicals we use frequently include soaps, air fresheners, motor oils, glues, and varnishes. We know that plants purify our air, provide vegetation, and help prevent soil erosion. Given these and other crucial roles plant life plays on our planet, I believe studying ways to reduce chemical waste in groundwater would be a valuable next step in a classroom science project about the effects of chemical pollutants on plants. As a teacher facilitating this type of science project, I would have the students study the dynamics of our land surface ecosystems, such as what constitutes groundwater, and concepts including permeability, soil porosity, and saturation zones. Another important facet of the unit would be to study the different approaches we use in this country to clean up contaminated groundwater. I also think it would be important to have the students learn about the reciprocal nature of our ecosystem. If groundwater is polluted, then water that leads to our rivers and streams also will gain some of that pollution, which will have an effect on aquatic life and ultimately on us. Projects I could see resulting from this type of science study would be having students start their own campaign to clean up groundwater around them. They could have a pea patch on campus and design flyers for neighbors around the school that talk about safe disposal practices. The students could collect soil from the pea patch to analyze. They also could create pamphlets as a summative assessment piece. The pamphlets could have statistics about chemical used in the area and ways to recycle them and safely dispose of them. Other facets of this type of study could be having a guest speaker or Skype conference with a local rep of an environmental agency, breaking the class into groups to study this problem in other countries, having debates, and potentially making a presentation at City Hall.